Hello, YouTube. It's your boy Nathan coming to you to do another recap video. Today we are talking 90 Day The Single Life Season 5, Episode 14, the act of making it official. So it is the last episode before the tell-all. So we're just going to get on into it. The first person I want to talk is, I want to start with Kim and Wayne. So as we all know, Kim and Wayne are in the UK with Jamal. Same with Jamal. Um, we left off last week with Kim wanting to meet Wayne's daughters at this pub or whatever. Wayne's daughters come in and they're two very beautiful girls and stuff. They were really nice. They met Kim and Jamal. They like both of them and everything. And then they played like some kind of game where you have to it was like bowling, but it's not. Some kind of game where you have to like roll the ball and it has to hit a certain pin in order for you to get points or something like that. So Wayne was pretty good at it. Jamal did okay, and the girls did okay, but Kim didn't really. So then they had a conversation, and this is where I think it producers base, because we were saying last week that why does Kim have to feel the need to make it a big deal to tell Wayne about her adopted kids, basically. So prior to that, though, the Wayne's daughters talked about like the only reason why like Wayne has a hard time dealing with having has a hard time dealing with people in relationships because of their baggage. And Kim was a little taken back by that. It's like everybody has baggage, and I got a lot of baggage and everything. So like, what are we? So like, what's going on here, basically? Yeah, we all know Kim has a lot of baggage, and she's right that everybody comes with some kind of baggage, some kind of trauma from past relationships. Everybody's got some kind of past that they want to forget and move on from and stuff and everything, and not bring it into their next relationship and stuff and everything. So later that night, Kim and Wayne have a conversation, and Wayne actually cooks dinner for Kim and everything. He did a great job. She said she's never been really had a man really cook for her like that and everything. So it was pretty nice. And then they finally had the conversation where Kim was just like, "Please don't judge me. I have two adopted daughters." He was like, well, two adopted children, I should say. And he was like, "Okay." And everything, and she explained the story behind it and everything. And Wayne was cool with it. He didn't judge her or nothing. He said, "That's your past. We've all got like skeletons in our closet and stuff and everything. We've all been through some kind of experience that just like leads to we on today." So then she's all cool with that, but then she asks Wayne, like, "So like, what are we? Are we boyfriend and girlfriend? Are we dating? Like, what are we?" And Wayne said, "I don't want to make that do that as a pressure. Basically, we're just gonna have to really see how it goes and stuff and everything." So Kim took it as like, "So we're not official, but we're not gonna see anybody else but each other," if that makes sense and everything. So they eat dinner, and then the next day, we see Kim packing up her stuff because she's getting ready to go back to the United States, and Wayne comes over to say gives her goodbye. I guess he texted her and said hashtag boyfriend girlfriend or something like that. So he maybe changed his mind, and now that they are boyfriend and girlfriend and everything. So Jamal comes and gets his mom, and they say their goodbyes and everything. And Jamal really liked Wayne and stuff and everything. It was interesting when Kim and Jamal were meeting Wayne's daughters. Jamal kind of spilled the beans and said, like, my mom was in a international relationship before with some guy that was pretty different, and he was 20 plus years younger than her. And Jamal was just like, "Oh, but I attract older women, I attract younger women, so I gotta get it and stuff and everything." I'm like, why would you tell them that? Like, dude, Jamal. Because I was mad at him last week for calling his mom bro. They have like a weird, like I feel like their relationship that I seen on Pillow Talk was really staged and everything. They have a really weird dynamic, Kim and Jamal do and stuff, in my opinion. But nonetheless, Jamal really likes Wayne. He dapped him up on the way out, and Kim actually is heading back to America and stuff. So yeah, that was Kimberly and Wayne. Next couple I want to talk. Let's talk Sophie, Pedro, Liz, Vea, and all them. The girls trip, the DR crew. So we'll start with Sophie and Pedro. So last week, Sophie and Pedro had that conversation, and Sophie revealed that she kissed that guy and everything. And Pedro had a flip and had a fit and stormed out. So Sophie's been texting Pedro like ever since then. Like, are you okay? Do you hate me? Are you mad at me? Can we do something? And he's just ghosting her. So Sophie and Julia and Liz are getting ready to pack up. It's their last day in the DR, and I guess the hotel that they're staying at is having like a big phone party or whatever. And so the girls are getting ready for the phone party. Liz says that Vea is coming along and stuff. Sophie's just like by her girl, just like eager. It's like, is he gonna text me? Is he gonna call me? This, and that, and everything, and nothing. So Vea gets to the pool. Well, the girls start swimming first and playing with the foam and stuff. Then Vea comes in. Liz is excited and stuff. And then they flat out ask Vea, have you talked to Pedro? And he was like, yeah, I talked to him. And they're like, is he coming? And he was just like, well. And then Julia was just like, it's a yes or no question. Is Pedro coming? And he's like, okay, no, because you kissed a guy. And Sophie is just like, well, I told him many times I'm not ready for a relationship, and this is exactly why and everything. So Sophie and Julia get out the pool, and she tries to call Pedro, and once again he ghosted her. Then they go over to Pedro's room, and he's packing up his stuff and saying, yeah, Sophie's been calling me. Do you hate me? Can we talk? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, no, F off and everything. And Pedro changed his flight. He was supposed to leave the next day with everybody, and he changed his flight to the same day. And he just is out of there. He's just like, screw this. And like I said last week, I stand by what I said last week. Is that like how are you guys like start like hanging out and everything in America? He invites you to his country to hang out even more and to meet his family, and you go do that. You gave him mixed signals. You keep saying, well, I'm not ready for a relationship. I told him all the time. Okay, and yes, Pedro should take the hint, but you still let him on because why did you go on that trip then? That's my opinion. You gave him a lot of false hope and stuff. So this is why it ended the way it ended, because you gave him a lot of false hope. Meanwhile, we seen Liz have a conversation with Vea. Now, remember Liz said a few weeks ago that she's actually has a guy back at home, and she was just talking to Vea as like, two people didn't expect to fall for him and stuff and everything. So Liz and Vea have a conversation, and basically they decided to part ways. Liz said that, like, I don't know what the long-term relationship, especially with my sickness, with my ovarian cancer and everything, like if this is going to work, plus having somebody back at home. She says that she has no regrets of anything that they did on this trip. Vea was really understanding. He said he has no regrets either on how the trip went and stuff and everything. And yeah, they decided to part ways and remain good friends and stuff. So Sophie, Julia, and Liz finally pack up everything and finally head on out to the airport. Vea comes in to check on them, say their goodbyes and stuff and everything. Sophie's still upset that Pedro like basically ghosted. She said that he could at least told me something. Could have just been like, I'm done with you, don't talk to me again. I would have respected that more than just him ghosting and stuff and everything and whatnot. So yeah, I think this trip just ended in disaster for all of them. You know what? I give Liz credit because Liz actually did the trip right until she told him that she has a guy back at home. And we're just like, Julia was just like, next time we go on a girls trip, no boys, please. Like for real. Because yeah, they all just did some really shady stuff, in my opinion, on that trip. All of them. Like, why? I understand why Julia's there. Everybody keeps asking, well, why is Julia there? Her and Brandon are doing well. Why's Julia there while she's pregnant and everything? Well, I mean, she's good friends with Sophie. She's a wing woman. She was the life of the party, I guess. So that answers that question basically. So yeah, we'll see what happens at the tell-all. So yeah, that was Sophie, Pedro, Liz, Vea, and all of them. Next couple I want to talk is Vanya and Tony. So Vanya and Tony, last week we left off with Tony's parents being there and talking about going to church and everything. Vanya is still really adamant about not going to church. She said that, and where she was from, like there was like three religions, like Catholic, Orthodox Christian, and Muslim and stuff. And her parents were not religious, so she wasn't religious basically. And she told that story last week that was pretty deep and intense. So, but surprisingly, Tony's parents, like, weren't fazed by that. They were like, Vanya's a nice girl, and if she doesn't want to do this, she don't got to do this, basically. And Tony was just really surprised that his parents were really lenient with that because how religious that they are. So the parents leave and everything, and Vanya and Tony are just like having their little moment and having a little time together and everything. Then next thing we know, Tony pulls a Tom. Remember Tom that was with Darcy, now he's with Mariah. He decided to pull a Tom. He gets out like a little heart box and he opens it up. Vanya's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, and everything. And she opens up the thing. She's expecting jewelry. She's expecting a ring and stuff and everything. And lo and behold, it's not a ring. It's a key, just like what Tom did with Darcy. Tony wants Vanya to move in and stuff. And Vanya was like, okay, this is kind of disappointing. I kind of expect anybody normal would think that would be a ring in that box basically. And it was a key. I mean, it's cute, but like really a key. So, but yeah, Tony wants Vanya to move in and stuff and everything. And Vanya is just like, I don't know, and everything. But they eventually decide, instead of Vanya moving in to his place, they decided actually instead they want to start fresh and get their own place together. But Vanya has a lot of reservations because they're not married. They are not married, and he still has a lot of doubts and not ready for marriage and stuff. And she don't really want to move in with them until really that they're married. And if he's going to move in, and they get a house together and share finances and stuff and everything, and he's just holding out about the marriage, then she ain't going to like that. So they decided to go visit a house, basically. And this house, now they live in Florida. This house was on the beach. This house was they go and meet with the realtor. He shows them around the house. The house was gorgeous, beautiful and stuff and everything. And it was right on the beach. Now, here's my thing about that. I think that was fake. That was fake. And I'll tell you why. Any house on the beach is not, I mean, I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. But a house that's right next to the beach, ain't it just like a rent? Don't they just make those for like rental, like if people are on vacation and want to stay like by the beach and stuff, like an Airbnb type place, like a vacation house basically and stuff? Is it really a place for two people to fully move in and start their own lives and live in a family? Those kind of houses, those kind of houses are like more within the city and stuff. That was a really big beach house, and it was super big. And why do they need a house that big and stuff? So I don't know. I just thought that was produced basically and everything. Unless they're gonna buy property and buy that property and rent it out and stuff, there's just no way just two people who just decided that they want to move in together or get a house together are going to get a house looking like that on the beach. Because yeah, I'm not no real estate expert, but I've been seeing the shows, and when I see a house that looks that nice and is on the beach, that's not a house to fully move into. Yes, it would be nice to live on a house like that right by the beach and stuff and everything. But realistically, that's just a vacation house. It's an Airbnb and stuff. So when tourists who come down to Florida for vacation, when they go to the beach, they have some place they can rent out and stay for the week or whatever, how long they're there. So so the realtor told him, "Hey guys, why don't you guys take a walk on the beach and discuss things and come back to me?" And that's when they discussed, like, Tony's like hesitations. Is he gonna propose? Like, and he ain't really ready. And Vanya's just like, "I don't want to do this if you're not ready," basically. And frankly, we've been hard on Vanya the whole season because we just need her to chill. Just chill, Vanya. It's okay. But I see her point. Why move in if he ain't ready? This is the thing. People need to move in when they're married, when they're getting ready to get married. And, people want to move in so quick and everything and stuff. And it just, when you're not married, it just turns into a disaster and stuff. So I don't know. That's just my opinion on that and stuff. But yeah, that house was not a house that a, a new couple can come in. And plus, and they didn't give me a price, but that looked expensive. Just saying. So, so yeah, but yeah, that was Vanya and Tony. Next person I want to talk is Gino, my man Gino. So last time we saw Gino, he broke up with Natalie and stuff. And rumor has it Natalie will not be at the tell-all and stuff, but we'll have somebody else and another person that we're kind of dreading. And I'll get to that later when I preview the tell-all. So Gino decides to meet up with a new lawyer and stuff because he wants to finally file for divorce from Jasmine. So it's late at night. He's walking around town. He goes into this like shop that just has like rocks and like spiritual some kind of spiritual stuff or whatever and everything. I'm just like, what in the world is going on? And he was just, and the lady served him like, "Can I help you?" He was like, kind of browsing around, but I was kind of looking for my lawyer. And then his lawyer came in and they go to the office, and his lawyer was like, on the side, this is what I do. I have all these like spiritual stuff, all these like rocks and stuff and everything as my basically a side hustle. So, but okay, weird, but whatever. So Gino and this guy, they talk about, he wants to finally file for divorce from Jasmine. And as we all know what happened, Jasmine had a baby out of wedlock with Matt and everything while still being married. And by law, I guess the law's in 50 states that since since they're still married, Gino legally is the father and stuff, and he could do, and they could do child support if he ain't careful. So the lawyer was just like, well, we gotta basically do it's like this is gonna be a challenge because now that she lives in a different state, and I don't know, like they have to research what their Florida laws are and everything and stuff and everything. But the lawyer said that this is gonna be a challenge, and if nobody's willing to cooperate, this is gonna be messy and stuff. And the lawyer said that this is going to be the biggest divorce case he's ever had because, yeah, dealing with the other person having a baby out of wedlock, immigration, and moving to a different state. This is not going to be easy and stuff. So when he said that, like I really do feel bad for Gino, like, because this situation was crazy and stuff and everything. So I really hope that they can finalize the divorce and stuff and everything without it being just like a crap show, basically. So after that, Gino gets back online and starts talking to girls online like he always does. And he's been talking to this girl named Lexi and stuff. And he decides to go on like a little mini date with this girl named Lexi. They meet up at a coffee shop and everything. Lexi, she says she met Gino online. She was just like, why not, and everything. And she likes him, and they're hitting it off. So they go on their little date. And we all know Gino's 56 years old. It's been revealed that this Lexi girl is 30 years old. So, and we all know Gino likes the young girls and stuff. He made it clear on that and everything. So, after, so they're on their date, and he asked her, like, is this age gap a problem? And she said no for her, but the parents it might be because you are older than my dad. And Gino's just like, are you freaking serious? I'm older than your dad and stuff. What are we doing here and stuff? But Gino wants to date a younger girl because he still wants to have a kid. And if he dates someone younger, they could still have a kid. Now, this Lexi girl, she actually has a kid. She has a 4-year-old and stuff and everything. And she said, any relationship I get in, they have to accept my kid and stuff, which I 100% agree and everything. So they're hanging out, and then they say goodbye, and they actually do they actually do kiss. It was an awkward kiss and stuff, and you know how awkward Gino is. He was like, "Can I get another one?" She was like, "Maybe next time." And she's like, "Oh, okay, I'll take what I can get," basically. And he was happy he got his first kiss, and he's like, "Yeah, baby," typical Gino stuff and everything. So yeah, good for Gina. Yeah, yes, this is weird. This is what is with these young girls wanting these really old men, older than their father, that I'm about to talk about even more in a sec. Don't get it. And speaking of old men wanting these young girls older than their father and stuff and everything, let's freaking talk about Courtney and Cole and this Phil guy. So Courtney and Colt, as we all know, I don't need to recap their storyline, but Colt is still living with Courtney and Phil. Basically, we were introduced to Phil last week, and I cannot stand when Colt is laying out with nothing on but a Speedo, basically, and everything, just putting his legs up and stuff. I don't need to see that, and I don't know why they like to show that and stuff. Phil is getting frustrated because it's basically time for him to go because he overstayed his welcome. It's time for him to go. Courtney makes him some food and stuff and has a conversation like, you need to, and says, Cole, you need to start going, getting ready to figure out what you're going to do. And he was like, oh, we're at that conversation now. He's like, yes, because me and Phil are trying to pursue things and we can't do that with you here. So it's just like, whatever, and everything. So eventually she did kick him out finally. But it was revealed last week that Courtney and Phil broke up a few times because of this weird dynamic that she has with Colt and stuff and everything, and got back together and stuff. But they did eventually kick him out. And then Courtney and Phil decided to go on a date. They go to a restaurant to celebrate their 3-month anniversary. They only known each other for 3.5 months or whatever. They go past the bar that they met and everything. It's their 3-month anniversary. They're talking about how they finally could get rid of Colt and everything. And next thing you know, Phil pulls out a ring, gets down on one knee, and proposes to Courtney. And Courtney says yes. Seriously? Seriously? Courtney and Phil are engaged after 3 months of dating. I've been with my girlfriend for almost 3 years and we ain't engaged yet. She is engaged to this old guy within 3 months. Seriously? She says like their intimacy is great and everything. He don't need no medication. He's ready to go and stuff. Oh my goodness and stuff. I mean, congratulations, Courtney and stuff, but this is weird. Here's my opinion on the age gap relationship stuff. For a while, I'm thinking, age is just a number once you're grown. It's always frowned upon, especially more when we see an older man with a younger girl and stuff and everything, because especially if they're, the person is old enough to be their parent and stuff, or older than the parents are the same age as their parents and stuff and everything. My opinion on that is if you're really going to try to date somebody with a big age gap, please just be mature about it. Do not be creepy about it on both sides, and even with the older woman and the young man that we see a lot here on 90 Day. It's fine. Don't be creepy about it. Don't make any like inappropriate comments out in public and everything and stuff and everything, or just come off as like a creepy stalker or anything, because then you're already putting yourself at risk anyway for dating someone younger, super younger than you, young enough to be your kid or whatever and everything. So don't make it, if you're gonna do this, don't make it creepy. That's just my opinion. Just don't make it creepy. Now, I don't know. Phil don't look like he. I don't know about Phil. I don't know. I mean, but I think this is more Courtney's doing than more of his and stuff. But they're in love. They're in love. And yeah, Courtney's engaged. It was all over ET and the 90 Day page that Courtney's engaged. And we'll see more about that on their, when they do diaries after the tell all and stuff. So yeah, that was Courtney and Colt. So that was basically it. We are now, let's preview this tell-all. The tell-alls next week is going to be hosted by this guy named Ross Matthews. I'm kind of disappointed it's not going to be Sean Robinson, but hopefully she's back when we get to the 90 Day tell-all. So tell-all, it looks like we'll find out more what happened on the DR trip with the girls and Pedro and stuff. I think Pedro is going to introduce his new girlfriend. Liz, she has a ring, she's engaged, and maybe she's engaged to that Alec guy that she was talking about. I think that is the case and stuff. Vanya and Tony, like Tony and the cousin Sanello will join and everything, share their opinions and stuff, and Vanya's gonna get emotional and stuff. Gino and Natalie will not be at the tell-all, but that Lexi girl that he went on a date will be there on screen, and they're gonna bring out freaking Jasmine to cause trouble and stuff and everything. And you know, Gina's not gonna be thrilled to see her and stuff and everything. So yeah, I can't. And they'll bring Phil out. They're gonna bring Phil out, and he'll say what he needs to say about Courtney and Colt and stuff. And then they'll bring Jamal out for Kim and stuff and everything. And I guess like Jamal and Colt are gonna get into it. Like they're like, Kim is sitting right in between them, and they're like really going at it and stuff, and calling each other names. Like Jamal said, I don't like how Colt treats these women, and Colt says something ignorant to Jamal, and Jamal's like, okay, well, stand up. Let's like stand up. All right, both of y'all. Like, I'm just thinking both of y'all. Yes, I would like to see Jamal knock Colt out and everything, but neither one of them going to do nothing. They both just talk. You know, Kim is in the middle right there saying, I'm in the middle here. Stop. Both of you stop. They ain't going to do nothing. That's just all for excitement in television stuff and everything. Obviously, they're not going to let them do anything. So I can't wait to see that. So yeah, that was basically it. So yeah, that's season 5 of The Single Life. We have a 2-part tell-all, and then in a couple of weeks, we'll get ready for Last Resort. So anyway, guys, that is the end of my review. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. I'll be back on Sunday, Monday to recap 90 Day Fiance. Yo, this season, it's going to be a doozy. But anyway, guys, again, thank you so much, and I'll see y'all soon. Bye, y'all.